I'm David Betancourt. I spend a lot of time in a Gilded Age mansion. The house is called Belcourt. It's off the famous Bellevue Avenue in Newport, Rhode Island. Built for a divorced bachelor in 1895, it has been recently restored and has a fascinating history.
Hello, and thank you, David, for inviting me to share my memories of Belcourt.
Of course, my pleasure, my honor. Harle, of course, a long-time resident of this great house from about December 1960 to November 2012, and now is a mainstay every Saturday morning, which is very cool to have you back.
Thank you. Well, this is home in many ways, and 52
Yes.
years, you can't spend 52 years in a place without calling it home. However, I'm glad to see David here, who is enjoying it, loving it, and understanding the importance of this
Yes, I love
19th
this
century house.
Certainly. So we've talked quite a bit about how you got here, your marriage with Donald Tinney, and also about your early days of living in the house, moving in 1960, spending time with Ruth and Harle Tinney, and of course your husband, Donald Tinney. So today, though, I wanted to just switch gears on you real quick.
Okay.
And I want to talk. I want to talk. Suddenly I'm from
Are
Long
you
Island.
a Rhode Islander?
Yeah, right?
Well, so am I.
Coffee talk. Anyway, I want to pick your brain about the spirits of this great house. So the ghosts that have been here.
And I'm glad you used the word spirits, because Belcourt has a spirit of itself. But most of the spirits that I experienced came with the Donald Tinney collection. And I still retain some of those most, quote, haunted pieces.
Yeah.
And the armor that you have here today is not the spirited suit. So,
Which is, I think, great news, to be honest with you. But let's talk about, let's first start off with Virginia Smith. When did
Okay.
she come to the house, and who is she?
Virginia Smith was a young woman and lived in Spain for most of her young years. And she came back. She came originally from Long Island. Her parents were publishers of one of the newspapers in Long Island. And I believe it was in the 1970s she rented a house, an apartment over at Midcliff on the Cliff Walk, and had many experiences. She's a sensitive with seeing apparitions from the time she was a little girl. But in those days, you wouldn't have talked about ghosts, nor would I have ever said a word about my experiences in the early part.
Why
I'm
is
not
that?
sensitive.
Why is that?
Well, because you just didn't do it. People would call you crazy.
Huh.
When I was in my 30s and 40s, if we had said anything about ghosts, I would have been called crazy. Put her in the booby hatch that you believed in ghosts. Only relatively recently, well, Virginia started by giving a talk on her experiences with a slideshow of the haunted places all over the world, not Newport. They were England. Well, as you know, the English talk a lot about ghosts. And if you've been to the Tower of London, you want to talk about ghosts. Now, they have ghosts. Even I, stepping into the room where the Queen stayed, Queen Mary, I think it was, before she was killed, was in a room in the Tower of London before she was beheaded. And that room reeks of ghosts. Donald couldn't even go into it. He was very sensitive.
Was Donald a sensitive?
Yes, Donald was very sensitive.
Interesting. Okay, so Virginia, how did she just show up one day with her slideshow, or did
Well,
you
no,
invite her
she
into the
gave
house?
it a lecture at Redwood Library, I think.
Oh, cool.
And the Tinney family went to it. She was very forward. She said, "May I tour Belcourt?" And we said, "Sure." Well, as she toured, she picked out things that she thought were extremely haunted in the house. It was mostly the antiques.
Items. Now, did Donald and his family, did they know anything about the haunted items? Like, they purchased these items. Did they feel something or
Well,
sense
but
anything?
never talked about it.
Huh.
Well, you didn't want to be called crazy.
So Virginia kind of helps the Tinneys come out of the skeleton closet, so
Well,
to speak. Come out of
Yes,
the...
she actually started people awakening to the ghosts in Newport. And then Elaine Austin Sharp wrote a book about the ghosts in Newport, and she told a lot of the Newport stories. People think that cemeteries have where you're going to see a ghost.
No?
Not likely. Where you're going to see a ghost is where the person lived. And my humble opinion, which I shared with Virginia, and she believed it, ghosts are events, not people. So what you see, if you feel something, is the reenactment of an event that didn't necessarily happen in the space, like not necessarily in Belcourt, but in the vicinity of a piece of furniture. Or in the case of the monk at Belcourt, the Tinneys saw that character. I saw it when I first was married, and they saw it at Seaverge. But every time there was a viewing or a seeing or a sense of it, it was right near the statue.
So the statue is 15th century, is that correct?
I believe so,
and
yes.
a German monk.
That's correct.
And how did that statue get into the house?
Well, the Tinneys had it, I think. I don't know. Donald never told me where he bought that. Let's put it this way. Donald never told me what he remembered about buying it. We talked about a lot of the things, and I took an inventory of everything with him towards the end of his life. And he told me everything. It was in 1992, 93. And I had to do an inventory for my father-in-law's estate tax. And I had to have a complete inventory typed. And I said to my mother-in-law, no way, I'm not typing that. I'm going to get a computer because it can be changed. Because if you type it for a valuation for an estate tax, it has to be perfect. No corrections, no little correct tape.
So this monk statue, where did he reside in the house generally?
He moved occasionally. When I saw the statue, he was on the he was in the grand hall downstairs.
And how big was it?
It's about 2.5 feet high, and at the widest point, maybe 7 inches.
And you have it in your place in Middletown.
I do. And he has not appeared since he was in Middletown, but what makes Belcourt unique is the granite in the house.
So if we were to say, bring the monk statue back into Belcourt,
Yes.
we run the risk of the monk ghost chilling here again. Or an event would
It would
show
be
us
at
an
a
event.
specific time, probably, and a specific place. Visitors saw the figure going into a door that is no longer leading to where it did when we owned the house. And trying to think, if you were to bring it back, well, if it were put in this room, in the French Gothic ballroom, which is where we kept a lot of the haunted furniture for the purpose of a ghost tour. But when the monk was in this room, it did not overshadow the ghosts in the chairs or some of the other apparitions. If ghosts are events, timing is everything. And when we had the monk in what we called the family chapel, or the reception room, it opened the door that went from the room that you call the withdrawing room to the ballroom. And without opening the door, that man walked right through it. And the monk statue was downstairs in the room below it. So it doesn't even have to be close.
So you mentioned the granite. Let's go back to the granite for a second. The granite it's like a decoration on the outside of the house. It's like it's on the corners, and it goes from
The coins,
yeah, the points exactly, and it's westerly granite,
yes.
which was quarried only briefly and is no longer a thing. I've never.
Well,
seems to
now
me
they're revitalizing the westerly granite
really?
quarry, and there was an article in the paper that when they did a blast, the rock fell on a house,
Oh no!
damaged the house. It's in the newspaper, and I'm trying to remember where I saw it, that was only like last year. But the westerly granite is a particular high energy stone. In fact, my mother's brother, Glenn, didn't believe in ghosts as such, but he was a person who believed in dowsing. And when he came to Belcourt, he dowsed the whole property to see if the underground streams were and things, why the house was built on a slab. Because there is an underground stream that's right under the center of this house.
So you're saying dowsing, that's the ancient art of finding water. So it's that's one of those, it's like a Y-shaped stick. And
Yes.
you hold the two arms, and the stick kind of guides you to where the water is, right?
Yes.
So this is Uncle Glenn.
But it also can tell the contents of a stone. If a good dowser can say, and Uncle Glenn said, the granite in this house is very, very alive. It is the westerly granite, the gray westerly granite.
Did Uncle Glenn live here?
Yes. When he retired, we asked him to come and stay here to help us build the Gold Coach.
Oh, that's cool.
Because he had time and knew about welding and metalwork, because when he was a younger person, he did all the bronze refinishing for Gorham Company.
Oh, wow.
And
Gorham, of course, one of the oldest silver companies here in Providence, Rhode Island.
And they also made stained glass windows.
Oh, I didn't know that.
They also refinished, did bronze casting. They had a big foundry as well. And Uncle Glenn's job was finishing the bronze castings for the Industrial Trust elevator doors. He was there at that time. And Newport National Bank, which is now Bank Newport, that big building on Washington Square, has some of the bronze work that Gorham did.
Oh, wow.
But most people are not aware of the history, and you take it for granted.
Take it for granted.
You take it for granted, that's
Thank
right.
you. Pun intended.
But Uncle Glenn was the one that pointed out that this house has energy in it that he could feel with the dowsing rods.
Huh. How long did he live here? Many years or just a few?
About 2 years, maybe,
Hmm.
or 3 years.
He died in the house, didn't he?
Not Uncle Glenn. No,
Oh.
Uncle Glenn moved up to Vermont when his daughter bought 300 acres for a dairy farm.
Wow.
And he moved up there with her. But I remember sitting in the first dinner, Christmas dinner in 1960. His whole family came. His kids were only a little bit younger than I. In fact, Ginny was was a bridesmaid at the wedding. I was 19, she was 17. And David was a usher, and he was maybe 14 at the time.
Were you close to them?
For a while, yes. While they lived in the same Cumberland where the Tinneys had lived before. But I'm remembering back to that dinner, Uncle Glenn looked at me and said, "You don't fit in this place. You're not good enough to be with my sister."
Oh, no.
Okay. Took him a while to recognize, but I was more of an academic. I was a schoolgirl. And I didn't know much about anything at that time. I had to learn everything. 52 years here taught me a great deal. And I learned architecture, I learned history, I learned woodworking, I learned gold leafing, I learned many, many skills that I still possess.
So besides Uncle Glenn, was Ruth and Harold, did they sense ghosts here? Or?
No, they would never have talked about ghosts at all.
Huh.
Because
What about Donald?
only with me. He did not want to talk about it outside of the family because it was considered weird. In the
So when did Belcourt then embrace its spirits?
Well, after Virginia Smith gave her first lecture, a year later, we invited her to give the lecture here at Belcourt, which she did. It was well attended. And then I think the following year, we're talking about the beginning of the middle of the 80s, when we could have events. You see, we couldn't have events.
I know all about that.
Yes,
here
you
at the
do
house.
know all about that, David. We were not allowed to have events here. So all the events that the Tinney family did before were charitable, and they were for local organizations, but ghosts would not have been a subject that you could broach with anybody. Even the church would have said ghosts are evil. And
Is that the official stance of the church on
I don't
ghosts?
believe anymore, but it was at the time. But that's why when I wrote my book, The Ghosts of Belcourt Castle, I wanted to call it The Spirits of Belcourt, because we are all spirits. What's the difference between life and death? When you've watched an animal or a person pass over, the body doesn't change, but something leaves.
Yeah, I guess. I've actually never been in the room when anything has died, so I don't know.
I wasn't when I was your age as well. But now that I'm maturing,
Well, there have been people who've died in the house, though.
here,
Yeah.
John Perkins Brown died in the solarium, but we weren't home.
Oh, no.
And-
Did you find him dead when you arrived
No,
home?
we didn't. David Friend was here, one of our working person, who
Oh, yeah.
called us when we were in the stained glass business, and we were commuting to Providence every day. And he said, have some bad news for you. John is gone. And
And Ruth? Ruth passed in the house?
No.
No, Harold.
She
then.
died. No. They
No?
both died in the hospital. Aunt Nellie passed in the house.
Oh, I thought we had a police officer here who said that he came to the house and found Harold dead in the other side of the house.
He was wrong. It wasn't Harold. It was
Oh.
David Friend.
Oh.
David Friend died in Belcourt in his bed.
And he was very close to your husband. They were very
Yes.
close friends.
Yes.
That must have been really hard for Donald to see his
Donald
friend
and
die.
David was married and at the time had a little adopted child.
All living here?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
They lived in the southwest wing
Yeah.
at the time. They moved though, but I think Kathy is still, his wife is still alive, and I heard via the grapevine that their little boy, Zachary, died.
Oh, no.
You don't want to ask me about that this particular time because 6 people in my life have crossed over
Mhm.
just this past 2 weeks.
Oh, no. Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it happens when you get to be in your 80s. But that's one of the reasons why I'm anxious to share my knowledge that I can with you, David, particularly because you have a care for this house, and my legacy really is my memories of Belcourt. What else do I have other than a few paintings that I've made and the history of Newport, which I lived, and ghosts a little bit. But Virginia Smith should have written that book. She was knowledge and she was into ghosts.
She's no longer with us?
Oh, yes, she's definitely alive.
Oh, she is?
She lives on K Street.
Oh.
And
Can we get her to come back to Belcourt?
I think she could. She's 92 years old and doesn't walk
Wow.
anymore.
Oh.
But she's got her marbles. I mean, she's definitely with it, and she has wonderful stories.
Maybe we can go to her and have her tell her stories.
She would love it. I have memories of the good times, and I don't want to see the deterioration of a friend. I've seen my sister and my brother-in-law, and as I said, I've seen too many crossing over, but I do understand it's a transition. And some funeral directors have told me that they've actually seen things. But the near-death experience group, which just stopped convening at the Edward King House, they had a group, and the stories that their people tell are very similar to what Donald told me when he died in bed and then he recovered.
What happened to Donald? Died and came back
Yes,
in this house?
yes.
What? Tell me about that.
We went to bed as normal, and I woke up and he was cold and not moving, and he wasn't breathing, and his heart had stopped.
Oh, my goodness, Harley.
I, felt for a pulse, and there wasn't one. I sort of panicked, but then my old Girl Scout techniques of revival, of heart massage and mouth-to-mouth resuscitation and all of that. So I worked on him for probably about 5 minutes, and all of a sudden he took a breath. And he said, "Oh, it was so beautiful." Oh, the music was unbeautiful, and the gates were huge. And I asked the person on the other side of the gates if my father was there. And that person answered yes. He said, well, can I go see him? And the person or figure at the gate said, no, it's not your time yet. And that's when he took a breath, and he was back. He lived another, quite a few years, probably 7 or 8 years.
Did you take him to the doctor? What did the doctor? Why did he?
No, we didn't go to
breathing?
the doctor. He got up the next morning, and you would never know that anything had happened to him. But he did have a heart condition. But he had worked like a son of a gun that day, out in the grounds, and either trimming hedges or something else. You know, grounds work takes a lot of energy.
Yeah, I don't know personally because we fortunately have a landscaping team that comes here.
But when you are working out in the grounds and you're digging holes and you're cutting wood and all of that, which he had done easily as a younger man, when we mature, isn't that a nice word, it becomes more difficult. And that particular day, he had worked physically very, very hard. I'm not sure it wasn't when he was working on the gates to Belcourt and doing the metal work and all of that. And that's heavy work.
Sure is.
And so he was just tired, went to bed, and his heart gave out for that one brief period of time.
Scary.
It was overworked. Well, let me tell you, it terrified me. But I have a very strong belief that I don't know anything about life. And life and death are the same. So.
You think Donnie lives on here? Do you ever feel his spirit or feel his presence?
Not here.
No?
Actually, Donald always said he would come back as a crow. So once in a while, I will see a crow doing something unusual when I'm driving. And some days when I'm driving, I know that he's sitting right beside me. You can think me crazy now.
No, I don't think that at all.
Because, or if there's something traumatic going on in my life, or I'm worried about something, he's right there. He's not here now, believe me. His spirit might come back here, but it will only be under a time of when Belcourt revives. Make it revive, David.